15 students were shot in the back. The students who died were Jeffrey Miller, he was 20 years old, Allison Krauss, 19, William Schroeder, 19, and Sandra Schroer, I think her name is Schur, was 20 years old, and she died. And Neil Young and David Crosby were on vacation in a log cabin in California right after the incident. And they had a copy of that week's Life magazine, and it featured that photo, you know, of the 14-year-old girl
the
screaming.
one on the cover.
Yeah, that girl was 14. She was screaming over a body that was laying on the ground, dead.
Yeah.
In fact, David Crosby was on our show, and he told me about the moment Neil Young was inspired to write the song Ohio. Here's a little clip.
You know the story about him writing it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, he and I were out at a friend's house, and they brought back that magazine, and I watched it hit him.
Right.
He looked at that picture, that kid on the ground, the girl looking at the camera.
Kent State, yeah.
It was brutal, and I might have handed him the guitar. I don't know. I remember him writing it. I was sitting right there. And he got done, you know, and I called Graham, and I said, Graham, get a studio right now. He said, well, I can get one on Tuesday. I said, now.
Because you were feeling what happened at Kent State.
Get the studio now.
Right.
And we went in. Neil and I went to L.A., and we went to the studio immediately, and we cut that and Find the Cost of Freedom, appropriately enough.
Wow.
And Ahmet was in L.A., and he took the tapes, took a red eye to New York, put them into the process, hot shot at the process, and we had it out like a week later.
Yeah, because I remember that coming out almost immediately.
Yeah.
And that music was urgent. Yeah, sure was. Man, what a time for music. Best time ever. 90s were pretty fucking good, but the 70s, the best. Graham Nash was in our studio, and he told us his side of the phone call about this song, Ohio.
Crosby called me, he goes, book the studio right now. Get the band together, get Halverson, who's our engineer, Bill Halverson. I'm coming down tomorrow. I said, boy, you sound intense. What the hell's going on?
What's going on?
He said, wait until you hear this song. I said, what is it? He said, it's called Ohio, and Neil wrote it. I said, what happened? He said, I showed Neil a newspaper with you remember that famous John Philo picture of the girl leaning over the dead body?
You're talking about at Kent State.
At Kent State.
One of the students had been shot by a National Guardsman.
4 of them.
Yes.
We slaughtered our own children.
Yes.
Right, so here's the story. So he shows Neil this newspaper or this magazine, whatever it was. He said, I saw Neil walk off with his guitar into the woods, and he comes back an hour later with this song.
That's awesome. The band went in, they recorded, pressed, released the single, 10 days total. Boom, out.
Wow.
They only did 2 takes of the song. 2 takes, that's it. David Crosby told me that, or at least I think it was that he cried after one of the takes. It was so powerful, the song.
Mm.
And Graham Nash said that they felt it was important to release it quickly. Here's him telling that story.
We had Teach Your Children going, it was already in the top 20. It was going towards the top of the charts.
Right.
We put out Ohio immediately and killed our own single because we thought it was more important to talk about America killing its own children than having a hit record.
Yeah, and then Graham Nash was in our studio. He did a little acoustic cover of the song when I interviewed him back in 2013.
We're finally on our own. This summer I hear the drumming for dead in Ohio. Gotta get down to it. Soldiers are cutting us down.
Beautiful song. It's one of my favorite songs they do. I'm always amazed when musicians write a classic song in an hour. I think that's just amazing. And it seems like such a magical thing happens, but when I asked Neil Young himself about it, his memory of writing the song was like just very straightforward. It wasn't so magical.
I was sitting on the porch at this house at the end of this Redwood Canyon in Butano Canyon near Pescadero, California, and sitting there in the sunshine. It was a beautiful day, and creek running by, redwoods up, the native redwoods going up the creek, and I saw this magazine sitting on this table, wooden table, kind of like a picnic table on the deck outside this redwood house or the fireplace, and And I was just looking at the picture, and I just so I went for a little walk, and then I came back and I just jotted down the words and played it on the guitar, and then we went and recorded it right away.
Unbelievable.
Now, when you have that kind of skill, that's what it sounds like when you say it. You know, it's like, yeah, I just went into the woods and came back.
I've walked into the woods. I've written songs. You should hear what they sound like. By the way, a couple of people covered that song, Ohio, but it never really worked out. For me, I mean, my opinion, Isley Brothers did like a 9-minute version of it, but I mean...
Well, that's a little excessive.
You think they should have cut it down to like... Well, the intro, I think, is like 2 minutes. Coming at you, WNBC, the Isley Brothers just released the bird. Oh, there it is. Can't you see the soldiers?
I see them marching.
Goes on a real long time. You know who else covered it? Devo. Remember the band Devo?
Really?
Yeah. Their bassist, Jerry Casale, I think is how you say it. He was a student at Kent State in 1970, and he was actually part of the protest, and he watched 2 of his friends die there. And Devo went in the studio. They rewrote the second verse. The new lyrics were like, factory workers dodging Vietnam and learned to read and write and spell and whatever. I don't know what, but here was their version. But again, the original's the one.
Soldiers and Nixon's coming. We're finally on our own.
You might need to cover this, Robin.
For
dead in Ohio. Yeah, it gives me a little bit of a headache, honestly. All right, I had it. Way to kill a good song.
What are they, just banging on the desk?
Yeah, that's called old school. All right. It's enough of that.